Within hours of taking office, President Trump signed a flurry of executive orders in front of the camera. But there was one move that he made behind the scenes that could have real consequences. I was the first to report earlier that Trump quietly terminated the Secret Service protection for his former national security advisor, John Bolton. Now, Trump had initially stripped Bolton of this security in 2019 after he'd left, but President Biden later restored it because Bolton has active and serious assassination threats from Iran made against him. But Trump defended that move tonight.
I think that was enough time. It's we take a job. You take a job. You want to do a job. We're not going to have security on people for the rest of their lives. Why should we? I thought he was a very dumb person, but I used him well. You can't have that for life. You shouldn't expect it for life.
When I say active and ongoing, remember in 2022, the Justice Department charged an Iranian national for plotting to assassinate Bolton on American soil. Tonight, that individual is still wanted by the FBI. My political sources are the former Biden campaign senior advisor, Alencia Johnson, and former Trump campaign advisor, David Urban. David, what do you make of Trump doing this?
Listen, I don't know what the intelligence looks like, right? Obviously, there's an intelligence threat done, analysis done. If there's an active threat still on former Ambassador Bolton's life, I think he should have security. If it's for the rest of his life, it should be the rest of his life. If John Bolton did things in our nation's defense that put his life at risk, then he should be defended by our nation for as long as it takes, whether it's President Trump, President Biden, future presidents. If you do things in defense of our nation as a public figure and a foreign government says we're going to kill you and there's an active threat, then I think we have an obligation to defend you. That's why special operators have their faces blacked out. You know, they're not people who do, tier one operators, they do these things. So they're not, their families aren't threatened and the like. I think John Bolton should be protected.
We heard John Bolton talk about this because he was saying, yes, he has been a critic of Trump's, which he believes obviously is why this happened. But he also criticized President Biden, and President Biden restored his protection when he was in office. Listen, he sat down with Jake Tapper right after we found out about this, and this is what John Bolton himself had to say.
I think it's certainly a downer for expressing your opposition to Donald Trump, as I say. Now, I'm not going to make sure measures are in place to provide protection, but I think the signal is clear. This should not be a partisan matter. It should not be a matter of differing opinions on policy or personalities. This, to me, is an act of war against the United States by the government of Iran in threatening current and former American officials for doing their jobs.
I mean, this isn't a not real threat. Mm-hmm. These are active and ongoing, and we've seen Iran targeting other officials like Trump and members of his campaign team and his family.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know David and I don't always agree on a lot of things, but when it comes to national security and active threats, you have to put partisan politics aside. That's exactly what President Biden did when it came to this threat. And I wanted to look at the bigger message this is sending to people who have been critical of President Trump and have literally, talked about their expertise and how they might disagree with him, how they, are fearful or concerned about the way he will govern. But that doesn't mean just because they disagree with you that you should take away their security clearance when there is an active threat against your life. It also,
John Bolton could be killed.
Exactly. And it weakens our position in the world. And that is something that I think is, we've been looking over the past few years. We've been looking at America's standing in the global foreign affairs. And so this is actually really concerning, putting party politics aside.
And John Bolton said in a statement to me earlier that he was disappointed but not surprised by it. I think another thing that's not surprising but isn't normal, or traditional, I guess I should say, is at the Pentagon, they display the portraits of the Joint Chiefs Chairman, everyone who's held that role. General Mark Milley's was just done weeks ago. It was unveiled at the Pentagon. You can see it here. This is what that space looks like now. They removed it. I mean, David, what does that say to you?
Look, I don't know if the president directed so that General Milley's portrait be taken down. I don't know who directed it. I think it's not a great message. I think, listen, the Republican Party is just big about not taking down people's statues we don't agree with, right? We said we shouldn't be rewriting history by taking down statues.
Yeah, those were Confederate generals, not someone like General Mark Milley.
Whether you like Mark Milley or whether you're not, he held a position. The portraits of every other chairman of the Joint Chiefs are hanging in that hallway. His portrait deserves to be hung there. It's a matter of protocol, not a matter of politics. Again, there are chairmen who serve there, probably have varied backgrounds. Your portrait is hung there, tradition. I think, I'm hopeful that during the course of this next 4 years, that portrait goes back up.
Well, look, one thing that I've paid attention to across administrations, no matter Republican or Democrat, is that there is a certain reverence for military service, for national security. And this is very much clearly showing that Trump doesn't care about any of that. And so we often talk about, when it comes to Trump and the way that some elected officials respond to him, we talk about protocol, tradition, democracy. This is very clearly showing how he's going to govern if within 24 hours of him being inaugurated, that he's playing these petty politics. Can guarantee nobody was paying attention to this except for Donald Trump.
Well, again, I'm not sure that Donald Trump directed the portrait to be taken down.
I would be surprised.
I did not know Mark Milley's portrait was hung there. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump didn't know his portrait was hung there.
They were tweeting about it, but we'll see. We'll ask him. David Urban, Alencia Johnson, thank you both. Alencia, I should note your forthcoming